Hi BookTube, this is the promised Sideline video where I talk about my response to the Barbie movie and why it led me to read Bell Hooks' The Will to Change, her work on men and masculinity. This is a video that's going to have a lot of disclaimers, okay? Get ready for them. First disclaimer is that this is not a film review. I just don't feel the least bit qualified to review a film. I don't watch enough films. I don't have the understanding about filmmaking. I don't have the right vocabulary for critical analysis the way I do with books. So that's the first disclaimer. The second disclaimer is that I may change my mind on any of the points I make today. I'll tell you why. I made several attempts at writing this script, and I discarded a couple of drafts. I've settled on this one, but I'm not 100% happy with it. And I know whenever I struggle to get my thoughts down on paper, that's because my mind wants more time, right? It wants to mull over this whole business for months and months. It probably wants to read lots of reviews. It probably wants to watch all of Greta Gerwig's films and read some reference books and yeah. But you know, that's the problem when you decide to be a booktuber. You can't say to people that you're going to cover a topical subject and then not commit to turn that subject out onto a video in a reasonable amount of time, right? So I reserve the right to make another video if later on I suddenly find that I disagree with myself. And of course, the third disclaimer is a spoiler alert, obviously. If there's anyone who has not seen this summer's blockbuster Barbie film, I am going to give away many spoilers. So please, park this video if you don't want me to take away the joy of your surprise. So after all my drafting and redrafting of these scripts, what I finally decided to do was just go with the gut reaction that I had to my first viewing of Barbie. What I felt when I was getting out of my seat and I was walking down the steps toward the exit. It was still dark, the credits were running. My second viewing didn't change those gut feelings. I can divide my reaction into 3 topics, which is fantastic because it means that I get to show off some lovely title banners. Issue number 1, the ending. At the end of the film, Barbie is transformed into a real woman, a change which includes being given a set of reproductive organs which now require the attention of a medical specialist, because those particular body parts, no matter how Barbie chooses to use them, are never going to give her a moment's peace. I speak as a woman in menopause, right? It's a female identity that never got its own Barbie and is never likely to. I felt unmoved by the ending. You know, no uplift, no happy tears, no feel good. If anything, I was a little repelled. I promised one of my work colleagues that I would include an idea that she gave me. We'll call her Georgie, okay? She's also a woman in menopause. She pointed out that the ending could be seen as a reversal of the opening scene. You'll recall that was the pastiche, wasn't it, on Space Odyssey 2001, where the sight of the giant first Barbie causes all the little girls to destroy their baby dolls. And why do they destroy them? Well, the narrator Helen Mirren tells us, since the beginning of time, since the first little girl ever existed, there have been dolls. But the dolls were always and forever baby dolls. The girls who played with them could only ever play at being mother, which can be fun, at least for a while. Anyway, ask your mother. If the film's ending is supposed to be uplifting, the only way Georgie and I could think to explain it is if Barbie wants to become a mother. Because anything else she might want to be, she could be in Barbie Land already. Both myself and Georgie are also women who chose not to have children, so we could not take away any feel-good factor from the "isn't it exciting to need a gynecologist" ending. We are part of a growing number. I was not able to find any statistics for the United States that I could verify, but the ones that I have seen are similar to those in the United Kingdom that come from the Office for National Statistics, which states that in 2020, 18% of women born in 1975 who would now be past childbearing age have not been mothers. Of the women born in 1990 who would be 30 years old in 2020, 50% are not yet mothers. To me, it's historically interesting that Barbie, who is the adult female doll with no reproductive organs was created a year before the contraceptive pill was approved by the US Food and Drug Administration. And it was that ability to control reproduction that truly liberated women to live longer and to have the energy and time to take advantage of education and career opportunities that Barbie Land was celebrating. My second issue with the film was the men. The film's portrayal of all the men. The Barbie Land setup for the Kens, let's talk about that first. That is a comic reversal of what it was like to be a woman in the past. In the past, women did not own property, and the Kens do not have property. Women were unable to do or qualify for most skilled work or hold public office, and the Kens in Barbie Land have no skills or real employment, and they do not participate in the running of Barbie Land. Women used to be permitted only one aim in their life, to try and attract a man and to keep that man happy with her. In the case of Ryan Gosling's Ken, he determines his self-worth by the amount of attention he can have paid to him by Margot Robbie's Barbie. Ken's musical number, I'm Just Ken, if you change Ken to Gwen and then you switched up all the pronouns, the song would still make sense. Naturally, since the Kens have no purpose in life but to hang around looking good, they are all a bit clueless, fawning, and shallow. But in the film's real world, the real men are conspicuous for not being much better. The Mattel executives, Aaron Dinkins, and Sasha's dad, they're not believable in the way that, by contrast, Gloria and her daughter Sasha are. Gloria is given screen time to hold her own TED Talk about what the real world is like for women. The real world men, on the other hand, well, they hardly have a coherent thought between them. They act like flesh and blood versions of Ken. That seemed unfair. Okay? Barbie is a comic movie, granted, but it is also a movie that clearly wanted to make a point about patriarchy and its real-world effects on women. Okay, but if the real-world men are portrayed as no more capable than the Kens, and remember, these are the Kens who were easily duped by the Barbies so that their Kendom was overthrown, then is the film just undermining its own message about patriarchy? This is the reason that I went and uploaded my Kindle version of The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. I left the Barbie movie feeling that the film just got lost in its conversation about men, women, and patriarchy. I felt that Hooks had something better to say on the subject. And even though with Hooks I still have a few misgivings, it was an antidote to the problems that I was having with digesting the ideas from Greta Gerwig's film. I mentioned in my Bell Hooks review that I also have issues with the terms patriarchy, feminism, feminist. I'll stress right now, I do not have a problem with the concepts that those words are trying to cover, so to speak. I have issues with the words themselves, and I need to explain that. If you'll remember from my very early nonfiction reviews, I read Frantz Fanon's Black Skin, White Masks. Now, Fanon talked about just how harmful it was for colonized people of color to encounter the white European archetype, which associates the color white with light and goodness, and associates the color black with darkness and evil and all things undesirable. For those people of color to then be labeled black and to come to think of themselves as black, you see, in that situation, the word black, by association, it becomes more than just a comment on their skin tone. The person who is told that they are black and knows about the European archetypal meaning of blackness realizes that there's a suggestion in the very label that they must be evil, or at very least, less good. Now, similarly, the terms patriarchy and feminism contain connotations because they are terms with built-in genders. Yes, the word patriarchy contains the concept of maleness in patria, which is derived from the Latin pater, meaning father. The word feminism contains the prefix fem, so it contains the concept of femaleness. Now, if we are going to associate the term patriarchy with an undesirable, oppressive attitude to how different genders behave, oppressive social norms, then you have to acknowledge that the word will also have the capacity to create an association between being undesirable and being male. And similarly, that association, it undermines the usefulness of the term patriarchy. I suggest that it creates unnecessary resistance to becoming more aware of oppressive social attitudes, resistance from men and resistance from women. In the same way, if we associate feminism with improved attitudes and improved social norms, we have to acknowledge that the word also has the capacity to create an association between improvement, being better, and being female. To my mind, the Barbie film leans in this direction. The female characters, doll and human, are all admirable. I mean, even the gullible way that all the Barbies succumb to the Ken's attempt at domination, I mean, that's excused by comparing their reaction to a viral infection against which they haven't developed any immunity. In other words, they're not stupid, they're just ill. The male characters are all ridiculous. They're easy to dismiss, which the film repeatedly does. You'll remember the CEO of Mattel saying, Ken isn't something we're worried about. Ever. So, going back to Bell Hooks and A Will to Change, she does use the words patriarchy and feminism quite liberally, but to provide additional clarity, she sometimes substitutes other terms, such as the competitive performance model, or perverted power relations, instead of saying patriarchy. Now, these phrases, yeah, they take longer to say. Maybe they're not the ideal, but they are gender neutral. To me, they seem more helpful if we're going to discuss oppression, because oppression can happen for reasons that are other than gender. Yes, oppression happens because of attitudes to skin color, sexual orientation, accent, class, brain architecture, or particular abilities. Gender-neutral terms lend themselves better, I think personally, when it comes to talking about intersectionality. Okay, my final issue with Barbie is the others. After watching the film, I found that I was hearing the voice of Myra Breckenridge in my head. And if you remember the book review on Gore Vidal, you know how strong Myra's voice is. Myra's voice nagged me. She wanted to know why the Ken dolls did not have matching boy owners in the real world, the way all the Barbies have matching girl owners. Myra's voice also reminded me that I knew more than one little boy who loved to play with Barbies, and the real world was not a welcoming place for them. The Barbie movie does not have anything to say about gender outside the hetero-binary that has been the norm in films for decades. There is queer representation? Well, okay, for example, there is a trans woman actress, Harry Neff, who plays one of the Barbies. Fantastic. But really, is that more than just a performative casting choice? The film is not interested in its gender non-conforming characters, like Alan, Sugar Daddy Ken, Earring Magic Ken. They appear, they say a few lines, but they have no personal story transformation, and they make no important contribution. The movie would have been exactly the same if Harry Neff had never been cast, and if you left out all the discontinued versions of Ken. To me, the Barbie movie felt tribal. And that tribe being cis hetero females who all had a big cheer at the end for the existential joy of owning a uterus and ovaries. It was the first film to make me wish that I wasn't cis hetero female, because I could dissociate myself from it more easily. It was the first film to make me go looking for another film that would say something more challenging about gender and yet be uplifting and inspiring and foster a sense of kindness and respect towards everyone. And please feel free to suggest your own favorite film in the comments, but the one I thought of was, bear with me 2 seconds, caller, Kinky Boots. It was a 2005 film directed by Julian Gerald. After I came home from the Barbie movie, feeling slightly deflated, I watched Kinky Boots on my laptop and it brought me back to life. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I will leave a link in the description box. That's all. That must be my longest Sideline video to date. I'll find out when I edit it. Maybe you are crossing your fingers now that I don't change my mind about any of these comments, because that would mean another Barbie video. Okay. We need to get back to reading books. Yeah. Okay. I am 76% of the way through Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, so look out for that review over the weekend. Thanks so much for checking out this video, everybody. I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.